Elevating Black Women in Tech. I am super excited to be joined by an amazing, amazing woman who I'll let introduce shortly. But this series is literally about elevating the voices of some incredible Black women in tech. And my name is Miriam Owusu, so I am going to be your host. And yeah, I'll be here throughout all the episodes. So I am delighted to be joined by a wonderful woman. And I always say it's always best for the guests to introduce themselves. So, yeah, Akua, it's great to have you here today. So, please let us know a bit about yourself, what you do, and maybe a fun fact about yourself.
Oh, fun fact. I love these questions. I never know what to say, but here I'll kick it off. So, hi everyone. I'm so excited, first and foremost, to be talking to Miriam because we have so many synergies and I think it's going to be a great conversation. So, first and foremost, my name is Akua Opong and I work at the London Stock Exchange in the infrastructure and cloud engineering team. I've worked in this role for about 6 years now, but I've been in and amongst financial services, I would say about 8 or 9 years without showing my age there. In terms of my roles, so I deal with a lot of things from applications, hardware support, AV, systems, projects like in terms of tech sustainability and also the tech D&I piece as well here at LSEG. I'm also part of the Women in Tech Network, the Women's Inspired Network, the UK co-lead of the Accessibility Network and the UK Community Action Team lead, and also mental health champion. So I have my hands in different hats and different pools of activities. Outside of my day-to-day role, I'm a non-executive director for Genius within CIC. I'm also a STEM ambassador, have been for about nearly 10 years now. I also do mentoring through Kajiga and other platforms, as well as recently STEMazing. So I'm mentoring this amazing lady in Kenya, very excited about that. And then also I've been a sports volunteer for about 8 years. So with British Athletics, England Netball, and also UEFA as well. So yes, many hats, many hats.
Wow. So, I mean, you all watching, you could just tell that Akia is someone that we need to cherish and hold dear because she's doing amazing things impacting the tech space and beyond. And yeah, Akia and I, we met last year, and honestly, as a woman that works in tech, that is continually growing in my career, like I am continually inspired by all the work she does. So, if you're not already following Akia, please do on all platforms. Please do follow her. So no, it's an absolute pleasure to have you here, Akian. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Let's get into it, I guess.
Perfect. So for those of you who are following us on this series, this episode in particular, we're going to be talking about the invisible load. So thriving amidst challenges. So today we're really going to be real. We're going to be honest, and we're going to be talking about what happens as a woman or as a Black woman in tech when you come in. And are there any challenges or invisible loads that we may carry? And if so, how do we navigate those? So we're really going to just open up. And the main thing that I really want us to all take from this is that we're all here to support each other and share our stories. So yeah, let's dive in to what the invisible load looks like in the real world or in real life. So I guess the first question for you, Ikia, is what does the invisible load mean to you?
Yeah, I would say in terms of invisible load, in the perspective of women, it's kind of, I believe women have so many hats. So women can be carers, mothers, sisters, aunts, nieces, etc. And especially when you look at in the workplace, um, I would say the invisible load is kind of, in a way, it's like a list. So it's kind of tasks, responsibilities, and women having to focus on not just the well-being of themselves but others. Because in that respect, women kind of drive a lot of things, whether it's initiatives, projects, etc. And also they've got that nurturing nature. And I'm trying not to be biased here when I say that, but having to carry the load of like how it affects their colleagues and other people around them. And I would say that kind of resonates with why I also became a mental health champion. It wasn't to pick up the other load. I've developed over time a lot of empathy, and I learned it from a young age when I was about 13, 14 years old. So it's really important to have that kind of emotional intelligence, because it helps you not only work well with your team, but help support others well. And I think that kind of links with the kind of like term as invisible load for women.
I love that. I love that. And thank you. And even to your point about like, it's not about necessarily stereotyping, but like women do tend to take a lot of the load unwillingly. And it can have an impact on mental health and well-being. And the fact that you're champion in that area is it's really a testament to what you're trying to do in the tech space. And for me, you know, as you know, I'm big on mental health and well-being, not only as a woman, but just generally as someone working in a very demanding industry. And I think, yeah, women definitely need to be looked at a bit more in this area. So thank you for that. And I guess just a second question off the back of that, like have you ever felt any times where you felt like you needed to work twice as hard to prove yourself?
Yeah, 100%. And I'm going to be honest about this throughout my whole career. When I first got into tech itself, I struggled. So the year that I graduated was actually one of like the financial recession years. So it took me actually nearly 2 whole years to get a role. And it was so many excuses like, don't have enough experience. So you need to pay X amount, do this training course. You need to do, there was like so many different variables continuously. And I got to a point where it's not that I was going to give up, but I then had to look at, okay, what is my plan A, B, and C? Because I just kept thinking, like, I'm doing all that I need to. My CV is relatively great. My personal state, all of this stuff is there, but I just didn't understand why I wasn't getting that opportunity. And I think it was because I don't know. There's twofold to this. Sometimes, like when you're applying for jobs and everything, it's interesting. When I used to go to interviews, even because of my name, they would sometimes expect a male individual, which I don't understand, but also my name because of how it's spelled and also my last name. Sometimes some people think I was even not only Ghanaian, but sometimes some would class it with Japanese and things like that because of how it's written and spelled. And I think with that as well, when you've got an African name over an English name. I'm not saying that it goes against you, but I just feel like sometimes when it's getting filtered through, because you know they use stuff like the ATS system and how they look at CVs and things like that. And I prefer sometimes when like they use CV trackers that don't actually have people's names on there, because I do think sometimes it does offer a form of bias without being harsh. Because also it was interesting when I turned up at a lot of my first job interviews when I was just starting out. They seemed always shocked that it was a woman attending the interview rather than a male person. And I think that already sets it up where it's kind of like, will they give me a chance? So that already creates doubts for me before even I've entered the interview room. But I try to always prove myself and show why I'm the best person for the job on paper. And even I remember, even when I was changing jobs from my previous workplace, peer consulting, to LSEG, I think I went for about 4 or 5 interviews, and it was really interesting because I got an offer for all of them. But even through that, I was up against men through a lot of those interview stages. Like, I remember sitting outside and seeing people come in and out, and a lot of them was men that I was up against. But one particular company, I won't mention because it's not fair to them, I remember when they offered me the role, the recruiter at the time, she was just like, oh, but it would be great if you take this role because you're a woman, you're a black woman and things like that. But I was just kind of like, but that's not why I should be put forward for the role. It's because on paper, my credentials are way up there. And at that time, like, I backed myself to say, like, look, I know that I could do as good a job or even better than someone else. And so it's not me being big headed or egotistical, but in this life, if you don't have a certain level of confidence or even back yourself, it's kind of like you're already setting yourself up for, okay, what pressures are you going to put on yourself as an individual, and you need to show that you can got the skill set to do the job, you're willing to learn, etc. But going back to that recruiter, what she said kind of hit me a bit, where I just thought to myself, oh, so am I a diversity hire? And this is one of the reasons they put me forward. And I was kind of shocked as that, because as another woman, you should be kind of trying to get another woman into role just because she's good on paper, not just because of the intersectionality lens of it. Because then how do you think that makes a person feel? And I remember saying to that recruiter, so does that mean that I'm getting put forward for the job based on my credentials, or because being a DEI hire? And it was interesting because she was just like, no, it's because of like what you could bring, your CV is really good, etc. But deep down I kind of felt like, no, I was a DI hire, so I was just kind of like, I'm not going to go for this role, because I was just like, I never want to go for a role based on false pretenses. It's just like saying that someone's put, they've got XYZ skills on their CV, they don't actually have it, and then they get offered a job because they could give all the talk in the world in the interview room. And for me, it's not about having all the chat in the interview room as well. It's a case of like, when you actually get into the role, can you prove it? And if I was to literally pull up all my line managers from every single job I've had, they always tell you she's hit the ground running within the first 6 months. She's proved like why we'd even let her pass her probation earlier, because she's been so good. And the thing is, in any job I've gone to, even now, I'm constantly always learning, because in the tech world, you need to. And it's not even just by reading books, doing online courses, but it is sometimes going to industry events, because you learn about emerging tech trends and things like that. It's through listening to podcasts. There's so many mediums out there which you can learn and grow. And I think if we just stay kind of narrow minded, I would say, and I'm trying to say this politely, it's kind of like you're missing out, because technology advances so quickly that you cut, like, if you don't constantly learn, you're going to get left behind. And that's how it works.
Wow, wow, wow. I mean, there were so many like pivotal things that you said in that. Like, I want to unpack everything, but yeah, thank you for just sharing that. And just, I mean, you mentioned so many things, Akia. You mentioned the whole element of like the recruitment process and feeling like, or questioning whether you've been recruited based on your merits and your credentials, or whether it's because of the fact that you're a woman and a black woman. Like, and I have been in situations like that where I worry about the whole rabbit hole of tokenism, where some companies may recruit a person, and this could be a woman, this could be a person of color, or just someone from an ethnic minority background, but then put them all over, whether it's on the website, to essentially present themselves as being diverse. And I never want to be that person. And I guess from what you said, like, you've got your credentials, so that in itself speaks. You don't need to be given a shortcut.
Yeah, no, 100%. Because even I remember when I did my degree, so I studied information technology, but under computer science bracket. And why I didn't just stick to just computer science and wanted a broader skills, because the degree I done made sure that I had exposure to like business management, financial modeling, simulations, engineering. So my degree overlapped with so many different departments like mathematics, business management, engineering, etc. So it gave me the tools that I needed to kind of thrive in tech. But I made sure to go the extra mile and do additional stuff, like I was doing like John's Ambulance Cadets while I was at uni, did jiu-jitsu, all these other sports as I do. And it, like, I really enjoyed it. And also sometimes I stayed behind to study, because I was just like, you know what, I really want to put my all into this degree. And even again, when I was doing placement, yeah, looking for placements, it was so hard again, because you was up against so many men in so many of the roles, because technology industry, engineering, we've got to be honest, it's so male dominated, any kind of STEAM related career. And so it's kind of like, okay, I'm up against this male person. And then if there's the odd other woman you're up against as well, and it's kind of like you don't want to take out your other female competition, because you want both of you to succeed. So it's hard and you feel like conflicted, but it's kind of then you've got to put yourself forward. But even that was hard, because I was going through so many interviews, or going through so many applications, and it wasn't because it was good on paper, but I got to a stage where I was starting to look up roles where in a way, I was devaluing myself by going for less money because I was like, I really want a placement year and I can't get to the start of summer. I don't have a placement yet. And as it always happens, things just come like buses after a while. So I had an option of applying for Lloyd's within Lloyd's Bank within London, or staying around like Chichester, Surrey area, and
Yeah.
more going for a role there. And I chose Rolls Royce because it's a car company, it's a big brand, it's BMW. And the thing was, it gave me one of the greatest gifts ever, I would say. And I'm glad that I backed myself to kind of get out of my comfort zone and stay out of London, because I got to go to Festival Speed. I remember seeing Lewis Hamilton with Honda at the time.
Oh,
And no, and it was kind of what, and all the opportunities I got. I remember even one time, because I worked so hard on some things in the office, they asked me to kind of help out at Festival Speed and this other event as well. I was exposed to like the Ferrari Club. There was I think it was a prime minister or a president from, it was either China, Japan, and basically it
oh
was,
wow.
they were getting some cars custom made for them, about 14 of them. They had specific colors for the interior design and everything. And it was just so special. And I got on really well with the logistics team. And I remember one time I was going home from work and someone kept bibbing their horn at me. And I was like, why do you keep bibbing my horn? I'm on the pavement. And then I looked around and it was one of the engineering directors. And he was like, oh, this new coupe, we've just kind of constructed it and we're giving it a test drive. Jump in, I'll give you a ride home. And obviously, you know, when they say don't get in cars with strangers or whatever, obviously I knew the person. So I could get in that car. But it was amazing. And then, yeah, we went for a test drive around like Goodwood side. And then I got dropped off home. And it was such a unique experience. And also, it just shows like when you build up rapport and good relationships with people, it works in your favor where you
Yeah.
get opportunities. So I know we'll talk a bit more about other things later, but it's when you're in any role, take as many opportunities as you can, because sometimes they're very far and few between. And you never know when, like, if you say no to one opportunity, it might not come along again for a very, very long time. So definitely try to back yourself and put yourself forward for things.
Wow, wow, wow. I mean, Lewis Hamilton. Wow. I mean, if you've got a contact there. But I love exact like everything you've said throughout. It's so important as women to back ourselves and to ensure that we're around the right people or in the right environments where opportunities do come. Because sometimes you could be in environments where
Yeah.
opportunities come in, but when those come, as you said, take it on board because you never know where it will take you in your life. And I think for me, as someone that's still young in my career, I'm big on that. Like, I may not know where this is going to take me, but where I can, say yes. And look where it's helped you and taken you. And I just want to also circle back to one of the points you said previously about you just being on an ongoing journey of learning and not ever thinking that you know it all, right? Not being stagnant in your journey. And I think even for me working in the tech space, things are always evolving. There's just so much innovation going on. And I think as a woman, to ensure that you future proof your career, make sure that you're upskilling yourself, make sure that you're keeping up to the trends and doing it, just really doing it on your own terms and on your own time, if possible. Because you never want to be at the back foot in your career. So yeah, thank you so much for that. And moving on to the next question. So I know you've touched on this briefly, but have you have you had a time or can you share a time where you face bias? And if so, how have you navigated that?
Yeah, I would say it's probably maybe my second job where I put in a lot of effort and work there. So I was in one team, but then they was looking for someone to backfill and help in the next team up. And I was put forward for it because like I showed that willingness where I was working hard. I was sometimes staying late to help with other activities within that team. Sometimes I offered to like come on the weekend if they needed assistance, and it kind of put myself forward for a role without me actually fully realizing it. And when that opportunity came around to do a secondment, I literally just grabbed it with both hands, because I was just like, the exposure that I would get to that line of work, it would help me, the future me, I would say. And I think it really did. So I like joining that team. It was great because there wasn't, again, that many women in the team. There was like one other lady in the team, and also we was the two of the youngest within the team as well at the time. And in terms of, I think the bias experience wasn't actually from the other team; it was rather my former team. It's just because. I was kind of moved up to that role, so it was kind of like a mini promotion, and I felt like the other guys didn't kind of get why I was chosen. And it seemed like because I was one of the recent to join the team, I don't know whether they saw it as favoritism, etc. But one of the reasons I was put forward was, and like I asked my colleague this, he was just like, but you showed the willingness to learn. And he was like, sometimes when we was troubleshooting things, you come and sit with us and actually showed that initiative. You'd ask questions. And it's a bit like when you're starting out in tech and you're doing programming, sometimes you use pseudocode to kind of line up things how they'd work methodologically, like start with the top and then go all the way down to kind of like, okay, this works with that variable and things like that. And so it's kind of, I was just putting in the work. And so because I learned certain skills and then I was picking things up really quickly, it was just in a way given, just because it was like I knew certain structures and processes for them. And yes, the other guys didn't seem like they was overly happy with that, but it was kind of, I tried to explain to them the reason why I was chosen, but then I was like, why do I keep explaining and justifying it? Because if you're good at what you do, you're going to be put forward for opportunities in the workplace. That happens everywhere. But I just felt like there was elements where I felt a bit sad that it was kind of like, oh, again brought up like because she's a woman or she's this, and I just kind of felt like that is very harsh, because why does it always have to be based on a person's gender or color? Why can it not just be because the person's good at what they do? And at first it overshadowed my role when I joined the secondment, because I felt guilty, but then I just stopped feeling guilty because I was like, I cannot do anything to change their perspective, what they think. If I keep letting it bother me, then I can't do a good job, because then I'm always hearing these voices in my head, and it's like me then only giving 65-70%, because that the rest of it has been taken away by the noise. So I just learned to drown out the noise and just do the best I could do in that role. And it's such a shame because I did a really good job in that role, but at the time they didn't have like the budget to keep me in that team, and I was really sad about it. And then later on they got someone external after a while, but I was just like, maybe it just wasn't my time, and I had to kind of like just accept it and be like, okay, like I have to look to level up another way. But I just think that in terms of the bias levels, yeah, in my kind of working life, there's times when I have felt that bias, or even in one job, I was kind of disrespected a bit, where because I was the only woman in the team, like some of one or two of the other guys kept calling me the intern
Wow.
in front of like clients and customers, and it got to a point where it started to annoy me, because I was just like, that's disrespectful, because why don't you refer to the other guys like that? And there's nothing wrong with even being intern or the youngest, but I just think that you got to have that level of respect for your colleagues as well. And even other people that wasn't directly my team but outside my team picked up on it. And one time someone called me aside and was like, I don't like the way they talk to you. And they actually fought my corner and said they're really disrespectful. And I remember they flagged it up to someone else singing, because I was just like, she's new in the team and she's done like a really good job. But then they referred to her as an intern, this and this and that. And like, I kind of like, it kind of made me at one stage stand up for myself, because it was just like, I'm not the only one that sees it. And at one stage I was like, is that just in my head that they're being disrespectful? But some of it was because I was doing such a good job that I was getting recognized, that it threatened them. But then it's a them problem, it's not a me problem. And sometimes that's what in your career you have to navigate. When people feel threatened, they could call you certain nicknames that are kind of derogatory towards you and other things, because they're so threatened. But it's kind of like, again, it's a them problem, not a you problem. And one thing I'd say based on that, I think sometimes people overlook the power of having younger or newer people in a team because they always forget that they bring fresh ideas, fresh perspectives. So never dull down what they can do for your team. And I personally think that even when it comes to work experience, internships, apprenticeships, we need to, as organizations, stop thinking, let's just give them like the photocopying, the making teas, and all these kind of tasks to do. I think it is disrespectful to these younger members of staff because the fact is they're there for a reason. They're there to help, like literally collectively work with our teams. And we need to stop doing that going forward and rather properly embed them to give them challenging tasks because like that's the only way they'll learn and grow. And we all started somewhere, we all started in a role not having too much exposure to things. So rather than getting that person to shadow you or going, do you want to join me on this project, like you rather want to say, oh, can you photocopy this or can you do that admin task? And it's like it's not fair, and we need to, as individuals within organizations, do better.
Wow, wow, wow. I mean, first and foremost, I mean, I'm sorry that you encountered that. But I'm so glad that you had the right mindset to flip it and recognize that it's more of a them problem than a you problem. And you're right in saying that at times, like if particularly a woman is doing really well, it can be seen as a threat to some others. And I think it's really important to not allow that to diminish what you're doing because some may take it personally and then it inhibits their career trajectory or their career journey, whereas you used it as a way to fuel the work that you're doing and focus on the positives rather than the negatives. And I've definitely been there where I've encountered people just kind of being like, oh, yeah, you're only good because of X, because you're a woman or because of this. And it's like, no, I'm good because I'm good at my job. So you don't really have the say to make my work less than what it is. But it's about controlling what you can. And for me, I'm big on like controlling the controllables. And I may not be able to control what people say, how my colleagues treat me in a workplace, but what I can control is my mindset and having the right people around me to continually like uplift me and speak life into me. So yeah, I'm just so glad you kept pushing because look at you now in your career.
Yeah, and one example I'd use as well, I remember I watched this film many years ago, and it was really interesting because there was this, I think he was CEO or something, but he disguised himself to be a janitor within a company. And you know why he did it? Because he wanted to watch people's behaviors, watch kind of how people treated one another and treated their colleagues. And it was so interesting because over time, yeah, he was literally just in the background, just watching certain behaviors. And then it looped around to like a year later or so, where literally he revealed himself to people and they was actually shocked. And it's really interesting the way certain people change from literally being nasty to him as a person to being really nice to him because they knew his position in the company. But it's kind of, you shouldn't have to be nice to someone just because they're this level, they're that level. You should be
Yeah.
nice to everyone, full stop. Be kind to people, full stop. And that's one thing we try to also embed and tell, like whether we have students coming, etc. Like even I remember last time we had students back in February, and I remember when we was giving them the talk, telling them about the company, etc. We reminded them that don't forget to, when you're coming in, say hello to the staff at reception, security guards, and things like that, because literally they are so integral to our company.
Mm.
And people forget as well, like even when you come in for an interview, security reception staff are the first people that you're going to speak to. And don't ever think that they don't give feedback, because let's say someone was really torn, they could go and ask them, how did you think that person was? You never know. And
Yeah.
so you should, that's why they say always be kind to everyone. Yes, there are times when people have their bad, good days, but still, that's the general gist in a company. Be kind to everyone, no matter what level they are in the company.
I love that. I love that. And I keep on saying I love that because I genuinely love everything that you've touched on, Ekuya, and even like throughout my journey, one thing that my mum instilled in me from the beginning was be kind. And even if it's the cleaner in a workplace, like be kind, the receptionist. Don't just feel like, okay, because person A is on X level, like that's when I have to be kind. So I think that just creates a healthy culture within a workforce, and I think that that's something to really just emphasize on.
Yeah, no, it is like even if I was walking and I saw someone had spilled something, or like once I saw someone dropped a glass and it broke, and I remember like I went and got like some tissue and some other stuff to like if or use cardboard if it was broken glass, but I went and cleaned it myself. And I remember like that one time the cleaner saw me cut, and I was just like, no, you don't have to do this. I'm happy to do it because it's kind of like as a child as well, I've learned to kind of certain behaviors and things like that. And it's kind of like also treat the workplace as you would your home. If like you drop paper, this or that, clean it up because you would do that at home. You wouldn't like let a minefield of rubbish pack up. So it's kind of like treat the workplace and the environment as your home. So when you're leaving for the day, clean up your desk environment and then go home. Because let's say if you didn't come in for a couple of days because of XYZ reason, someone needed to use that desk, it's in a clean environment and it shows something with your character as well. So yeah, it's quite important, these values, to like kind of uphold it if you can.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that goes for all walks of life. So, yeah, perfect. Perfect. Honestly, it's been an absolute pleasure speaking to you, Kia. We could speak all day, all day. And to those watching, like, I really want to close on this point. Like, if you're a woman and you're a Black woman in the tech space and you feel like you resonate with any of these, or you feel like there's an invisible load that you're carrying, just recognize that you're phenomenal and you're great, and don't let any environment or anything inhibit your excellence and brilliance. So, yeah, continue pushing. This community is phenomenal, the Women in Tech Forum, to really feel empowered and having the right people within your tribe. Um, but just recognize that, and never take too much load to your own detriment. So that's not what we want. And just to ask a final question, because I would love to hear this. So just for you, Akia, so what would you tell your younger version of you, or your younger self, who was in that space and entering the tech world?
Yeah, I would say definitely from my perspective, and what I talked about like being a co-lead of the accessibility network at LSIG is because even a couple of years ago, I found out that it was dyslexic and have ADHD. So with that, I didn't know that at a younger age. So it kind of puts into perspective like why I'm quite introverted and like why I acted the certain ways that I did when I was younger. And for me, I wish I had that support then as I have now, finding that out. So I've been through a journey in my adult life. And I personally believe, and one of my best books I've ever read was Becoming by Michelle Obama.
Mm,
And that's what I'll tell to my younger self, that always dream big and think of the future me in terms of what you want to become in like when you get older. So I always believe that young girls with dreams become women with vision. And I feel like that's so important because even in our adult lives, we always want to be a better version of ourselves. And a better version doesn't always have to be kind of more monetary. It's kind of when I look at success to me is kind of having like my family and friends around me, having good health, things like that. I feel like that is so important because when you have that, you're happy and you could do more because you've got that energy levels and then you could pour into others. But because we're talking a lot about load on this call, I would always say just always remember having self care, and like self care is never selfish, it's where you kind of take your power back. So just remember that if you want to be able to help others, communities, you need to make sure you're good and you don't take on such a heavy load and the pressures, because then you're no good to yourself as well as others. So you can help others, but just remember that there's certain kind of what you call it, you still need to remember that you have to be good and don't overfill your own cup, because otherwise it's just pointless, where you're not going to be no good to anyone and you get frustrated and things like that, and you don't want to. You've got one life to be happy, so always make it a good one and just keep improving yourself, for yourself, family, friends, and everyone around you.
Wow. I mean, that really touched me. Wow. Yeah. I mean, you can't pour out of an empty cup, and it's about really becoming and owning your true authentic self, and yeah, just really prioritizing you on your journey. Um, So thank you. Like honestly, Akuya, like you've been such a key person in my journey, and as I said earlier, an inspiration. So it's been an absolute pleasure to have you here today. And I know us at the Women in Tech Forum and just the audience really appreciate your presence, the gems, the wisdom that you shared, and just to the audience. So thank you so much for being part of this conversation today. And one thing I really want is, if this episode resonates, like if there's a line that Akia said that was just like, oof, it hit you, tag, share, like tag a friend, share it. Let's really get this out there, because this is such an important series that we're on, which is about elevating incredible Black women's voice in tech and beyond. So yeah, we really appreciate you listening today, and stay tuned because we've got our next episode coming up, which you don't want to miss. So thank you so much. Thank you,
Thank
Akia.
you. Take care. Look after yourselves. Bye.